So in today's video, I'm going to show you how to build this mini dynamic calendar with a weekly event cadence that you can simply select what you want to show for that day. And then you can simply adjust the month to the first of whatever month that you want to be in, or you can just simply swap this for equals today, and then it will automatically show the month for whatever month you're in. So let's jump right in. So I'm going to make a new tab and we'll just call this calendar V2. And then what we're going to do here is I'm going to set this up so you can print it if you want. And so you just go to print and then you can just set up like fit width, you can do narrow margins, stuff like that. So you can adjust it however you want. Obviously in your version, you don't have to have this part, but what we're going to do then over here is I'm going to set up a very similar way. So I'm going to resize this column to 30 and same thing with this row. And so I'm just going to set up just a border around this. And so in this first cell, I'm just going to type a date as a placeholder here, and we'll finish that here in a moment. Then what I have here is the weekdays. So let's go ahead and put those in. So select these and then drag it over, and then there's Saturday. So now I'm going to just center these, and then we'll do a little bit of formatting here in a minute. So let me go ahead and just merge this. So you just select merge and then put that in the middle. And then if we look under here, next we have drop downs. So we can select different things, or you can blank it out and it shows up blank. So we have a key and description over here. And so we'll need to bring that over as well. And so the description here I left blank, but you can fill in however you want for whatever it is you're doing. Because this could be workouts, it could be chore rotation, any kind of weekly routine that you have going on. And so let's go ahead and add that, because that's how we're populating the drop down. Go ahead and copy these just so I'm not doing that. Type this all out again. I'm going to do paste special values only so it doesn't take that format. So there's our options. And so I'm going to select these cells, right click, drop down. And then instead of typing them in here, I'm going to go drop down from a range. And the nice thing is here is it means if you ever update these, those drop downs will be updated as well. And then I don't like the chips as much. If you like them, you can leave them. Otherwise, go down to advanced options and change those to an arrow. And then we can go through and change these to whatever we want. And so I'm going to go ahead and wrap these. So that way we can have those fill in like that. As you can see, we're kind of getting there. So let's maybe add a little bit of the formatting here. So I can go here and then I'm going to do custom date and time. And instead of doing 9/1, I want to do like the month. And so we can find this. I don't really need the day in there. So let's get rid of that and then hit apply. And then let's go ahead and just do some fonts. So if you don't see this font or a font you like, you can go to more fonts. You can search in here. And so this is one I like to use, but you can use whatever one you like there. And then I'm just going to go with 36, I think. Maybe I should do, there's another one I like here. Like that, unbolded. That looks pretty nice. Let's do some colors real quick. So I like teal. I don't know about you guys, but let me go ahead and just add that here. Something like that. And then we'll probably tweak this and adjust a little more as we go. We'll start with that. I think I'll leave those there like that. So now we need to populate this calendar based on this date. And so I actually have one formula populating this whole thing. And so I'm going to go ahead and copy this and I'll explain a little bit over here. So what we're doing is sequence. And so if I just break out the sequence here, so it's just coming up with numbers. So what I'm doing then is in sequence, it creates this table of numbers. So rows and columns. And then I'm going to basically add that start as a date. And so let me go ahead and paste that back in here. So there's that 6 and 7. And then what I'm doing here is I'm basically determining what the first Sunday for any date up here is. So if you're always going to pick the first of the month, then this formula can be a little simpler. Go ahead and make sure we actually save that. So this formula could be a little simpler because we don't need this end of the month. This is basically determining the month. So if we're going to use the first month every time, then we can get rid of all this and just do a much simpler formula like this. But if you don't know, you could use something like today here, like I said in the intro. And if so, this isn't always going to be the first of the month, and then you're going to run into an issue. Let me go ahead and go back. So here's our resilient formula that will work regardless of what we're doing. Now we have numbers, and so you may be wondering what's up with the numbers. So we can change them into a date, and now you can see, oh, there's the dates. So the funny thing with Google Sheets is it stores dates actually as numbers. And so you can see each one of these increments by 1. So let's go ahead and change it back to a date. But I don't think I want the full date displayed. Maybe you just want like the number like this. And so in that case, we're going to go to custom date and time. And we have this whole thing, so we can delete this whole thing here. And then from this dropdown, I'm just going to select day. And there we go. So I'm going to go ahead and center this both ways. And then let's get our sizing here. So maybe change this to 90, and then let's change this to something like maybe 60. I think that's about what I did over here. Let's resize 60, something like that. And then it looks just like that. So I'm going to get rid of the rest of these rows. So there's a couple ways you can delete these rows. You can click and drag. You can click here and then scroll down and hold down Shift and click on that. Another way, if you like keyboard shortcuts, is if you just click on one of these, hold down Control or Command, Shift and down arrow, and then it'll select them. Then you can just right click and delete rows. Then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to get rid of the rest of these columns. So in this case, if you want to use the keyboard shortcut, it's Control, Shift, and right arrow. Or again, you can drag, you can click on one and then hold down Shift when you get to the end, right click and delete columns. So let's get rid of that data validation there. So we can go ahead and start doing some of our formatting. So what formatting do we have? We have some borders around here, so you can do borders if you like. Some people don't like borders if you like more minimalistic. But basically, a lot of what I'm doing here is actually conditional formatting. So let me open this up. You can see here are the rules that I have. And so what we're doing this one, if we pop this open, is we're looking at this whole range, and then we don't have any dollar signs around this. So what this is doing is looking at this cell, this cell, this cell, this cell, and so forth, and saying, is the value of that cell equal to the month in B2, which is the September? So that's how we're checking, is it the same month? And so we're going to do the same thing over here. And so select our entire thing here. And if you're wondering why we have 6 rows, is because where your month starts and ends, sometimes you'll basically be pulling from both of those. So anyhow, let's go ahead and add a rule. So if you don't see this over here, we'll just go back. You can go to format and conditional formatting. And then what we're going to do is custom formula, and we're going to do equals month. And then we're going to do the same as our first cell. So if you're doing the exact same thing as I am, then it's going to be B5. Otherwise, it's going to be the top whatever is here. So if this is B6, then you want B6 here. And then what we're going to do is it not equal to the month? And then we want to reference this cell. So in my case, it's B2. And this time I want to do dollar signs before the B and the 2. So that way that reference doesn't change. And so now you can see it's highlighting everything that's not. At this point, you can pick whatever you want for your off month. I just put them kind of so you can see them, but they're not super obnoxious. And then what we can do here is we can set maybe something as a default. I'm going to select all these, change it to this, bold, maybe 14. And then maybe I'll change the color as well. Something like that. Maybe we could go, should we go a little darker? Yeah, maybe something like that. And then maybe we'll change the default like this. So this is really up to you. If you like the white look, maybe I'll actually do it on this version. And then what we're going to do is we need to highlight whatever this is over here. And so this is just arbitrary. So let me go ahead and just do that real quick. Let me add one more column here. So this is just arbitrary. I just picked colors, so we can just pick, blue, maybe blue here. Something like that. I don't even know what colors I picked over here. I guess I picked a red there. So we could do red if we wanted to. And then let's go ahead and just get these in here. Do a little quick formatting. And then wrap those so they fit in there. And so this is the description. If you want that key and description. So just like that. And then you could add a description there of maybe the kind of workout you want to do. And so go ahead and fill these in. And then at this point, I think we can get rid of our grid lines. So view, show grid lines, and then we'll work from here. So at this point, we have our key and then optional description. So you just type in whatever here, and then maybe I'll unbold it. And so what we want to do is if this is rest and recovery, we want it to be this color. So how do we do that? So we come back over here, go conditional formatting, and then we look here. We have a rule. So it's looking at this. So B4 is equal to J6. So what we're doing then, select this whole thing, add a rule, and then we'll pick that same color here, and then do a custom formula. And we're going to do equals B5, or B4, sorry. B4 is right there. But I don't want this to continue on like it did with the month thing. So I want to use a $ here because I'm okay with it going across. So the B is fine if it changes to C, etc., as it's evaluating this table. But I want it to stay in this 4 because rest and recovery is only here, not all the way down. So what we're going to do then is basically, is this equal to this? And we can type that in. So that's going to be J6. And I'm using $ on both because it doesn't move at all. And so maybe at this point, we'll change this to white. And so there's cardio. I matched it. And so let's go ahead and continue this. And we're going to match it to each one in sequence. So now we can do 7. And this will be the blue. So you can do this as many times as you want. If you have more, obviously you can only select one per weekday, but you can have more options to pick from if, for example, you want to use this month over month. So go ahead and jump in here. It's going to be 8. So all I'm changing is this. I'm going, this is 6, 7, 8, and so forth. So this will be our green one. And then copy again. 9. And this will be our rest and recovery, our orange. And then finally our 10. And this will be our red. So there we go. I can close that out. And then whatever I select here will be highlighted. So there's whole body and so forth. Let's go ahead and just remove this for now. Now, one thing to keep in mind is if we get rid of one of these, so if I blank this out, these are all highlighting. And the reason is because this is blank and those are blank. So now they match. So you could use that if you wanted to highlight everything, but we'll go ahead and leave those filled. So what we're going to do now is do a little formatting with borders. So I'm going to select the whole thing, including this header. And then I'm going to go over here and then black, I think would be good. And maybe double thick, something like that. And then in here, let's go ahead and maybe we'll do white as our inner border. Now, the only issue is it doesn't do there. So let's do something like this. Maybe we could do something like that. And then maybe we'll add it in here as well. Maybe on the top. So there we go. So now we're coming along. And the only thing I see here is I didn't add it here. So I'm going to go ahead and add it there. So we want to do that right. We would select this whole thing and then just do inside on the whole thing. And there we go. All right. So at this point, all I'm going to do is a little bit of finish formatting on here. Just make these fit. And then we can just resize this, maybe 30, this to 30. And then at that point, now if you wanted to print this, you can always print it just like that and change your margins. Now, so I have narrow margins here and we have actually a little bit more margin going on. And so if you want to print this a lot, I would actually advise just getting rid of these entirely and just go like this. And the reason is so then when you go to print, it can actually fill a little more of the screen. And then you can do stuff like if you want to do alignment here, you can align it in the center both ways and do stuff like that. All right. So that is it for today's video on building a mini dynamic calendar. Make sure to check out the other videos on our channel for more tutorials on both Google Sheets and AppScript. And as always, have a great day.